Hey, Bobby Manning here. Welcome to Dome Theory, number 57. Just checking in quick this week, taking a few days off, trying to spend some time with my mom for her birthday. Happy birthday, Mom. Unwinding after the Las Vegas trip and taking this little tiny stretch we have here between the end of NBA stuff happening and what's ultimately going to become a pretty mad dash into the NBA preseason, rather, once we get going here. There's my dog, dubbed Barky, by my grandma to the right there. It's hot. But a few things have happened this week, so I did want to check in on them. Josh Richardson extended by the Celtics. I know Ashrod Blakely and Kanye West dug into that quite a bit here earlier. Fit, his role on the team going forward. Really, this chalks out to a 2-year deal at this point with a salary increase that you would have seen off the last deal. So going from about $11 million and change to $13 million and change, something like that here. So it continues this stretch that we have of Robert Williams, Marcus Smart, getting extensions, clearing cap space out of the way that we thought the Celtics might be aiming to try to open up next offseason for a max free agent possibly. I know they were just squeezing enough space with cap holds and everything else that they would have been in a position to pay Bradley Beal the $36.6 million or whatever it would have been. So I want to try to encapsulate quickly before we get our interview today why the Celtics went the other direction and took that cap space off the table, recommitted to some players here. Richardson, most stunning of them all. I mean, we haven't seen him with this team. We don't know if he fits. He's declined for 2 previous years here, playing with other stars and Ben Simmons and Luka Doncic most recently. Not getting the ball time in those spots and probably not getting significant ball time as a point guard in this setting either here in Boston. So why commit another year, salary, tax, all that stuff, and credit to the Celtics. This is going to knock them into the tax once again next year if they do retain this core, even though it isn't necessarily a championship core. Unless they decide to knock off that Horford money, but that's another discussion. Al Horford's only partially guaranteed for next season, so that is a direction they could go if they don't end up liking this core and they want to squeeze under the tax. That's something they can do. But more likely, what we're going to see happen here is the Celtics try to position themselves as flexible as possible for a trade while maintaining competitiveness on the floor through defense. And we can talk over on the Garden Report about what this team's going to look like, starting lineups, all that stuff. But just in terms of the numbers on this team now, they're in a much better position with medium-sized contracts going into next summer and even throughout the course of this year, and have TPEs on top of it to add more medium-sized salaries if they want to do a bunch of different stuff here. So they can go deeper into the tax this year using any portion of the $17 million that they got back for Evan Fournier. I would have loved for them to keep Fournier. Ultimately, that would have probably put them in a tough scenario if they wanted to do a sign and trade, because they're over the hard cap line right now, which is the line of salary you can't pass if you do a sign and trade. So there's no great amount of flexibility for them to do sign and trades right now. And there wouldn't be any at all if Evan Fournier was here. Even though I think he's a great fit on this team, even though I think he pushed them closer to contention with the team that they have in place right now, they probably hope that some of these young players can do things that Fournier did with more opportunity, like Aaron Nesmith, Peyton Pritchard, those types. So that's why Fournier's not here in the math sense. And as we look at the table here, just over that hard cap line. So I know Coley, Mick, and others asked about Lauri Markkanen, who's still out there in a possible sign and trade scenario for the Celtics. Yes, Fournier's $17 million allows you to take on up to that much salary with Markkanen, but it still is a sign and trade if you take in a player through a TP, because TP isn't cap space, it's space to take on money in a trade without needing to match it. So you can take on as much as you want, but if you're doing a sign and trade and Markkanen's still a free agent, he hasn't been signed by the Bulls yet, that is not possible right now unless the Celtics send out $1 million pretty much, because they're at that hard cap line, so it'll pretty much matchups that you need to send out $1 million for every $1 million that you pay Markkanen in this spot. So that's just probably not likely. What's more likely? Maybe you look at Markkanen if he stays in Chicago on short money in a mid-season type deal. I believe 3 months to the day that you sign a player, they can be traded, and this is going to come into play later, September, October, November. So you won't be looking at a Markkanen trade until November in the least. That's off the top of my head. I think it might be 3 months or December, some date there. Anyway, Markkanen probably off the table. Celtics probably done here in terms of this offseason, just looking at the situation and the roster position that they're in. They'll add a two-way guy. They'll add some training camp names. But overall, a pretty good offseason because you now have Robert Williams slotted in at, I think it's just under $12 million in the first year because of the incentives that we saw were announced in this deal. So Rob's going to have to play for about $5-6 million of this $54 million extension that he signed, which is fine. Puts a little bit of incentive in there, but you don't want to put too much incentive as we talk about this trade positioning, because I think non-guaranteed salary and incentives would qualify as that aren't good for trade matching. You can't use non-guaranteed money to match a trade. So Al Horford, for example, with that only $14 million guaranteed if the Celtics don't make the finals, only $14 million will go toward trade numbers rather than the $26 million that he's going to actually be owed next season if the Celtics keep him around, and any potential trades going forward. So that's where that Rob money lines up. For this year, Rob's not much of a trade help because when you extend a rookie off their rookie deal, you run into this poison pill provision, which effectively means the Celtics are sending out half of the extension money, so let's say $5-6 million in terms of matching, and any other team would be taking back his salary right now in terms of the matching mechanics here. $2 million or so is where Rob's at right now. Normally there's a bigger gap than that in a big time extension. You're normally either not going to sign a player to an extension, or it's going to be such a big upgrade off their salary right now that there's a huge gap between the poison pill total that you're sending out and the real contract that's coming back to the team in the final year of the rookie deal, like Rob's $2 million. This is only a $3 million difference, so that's probably something you could resolve this year if you are sending out Rob. But all in all, for a bunch of other reasons, you're probably not going to see Rob be traded this season. Going forward, as a $12 million player, and as a player who could potentially get better and better going forward here, you'd certainly be expecting teams to at least have some interest in Rob in a trade scenario for a couple different reasons, depending on who's going back. So that brings us to Richardson, his $13 million. There is no poison pill because he's not on a rookie deal. So he is still on $11 million right now and $13 million come the summer. Same with Smart. $14 million right now that he's extended. Next summer, he'll be $17 million. So you bump yourself up a little bit, and that's important here because this is what Jake Fisher, who was on Dome Theory about 3 weeks ago, said to me, and I do want to throw this in here because this is interesting.
So I think, there's a general expectation right now that Bradley Beal will sign his Supermax extension next summer. I think it's a lot of money to turn down, 54. Mm-hmm. And, dating back to Anthony Davis' situation in New Orleans before he requested the trade. People in New Orleans were definitely encouraging him, like, hey, man, sign the Supermax right now, and then we can trade you after. Get your money, but just sign it now, and then we can trade you. I think that's probably what's going to happen with Bradley Beal, too. Again, I'm not saying he's probably going to get traded, but I think he probably will take that Supermax because he has been so loyal to Washington and has never really shown, fully interest to leave. He was definitely considering it. There's a lot of people talking about Bradley Beal being on the fence more than he ever had been before. And that's why I felt it was necessary to report that, because I also really felt that the Russell Westbrook trade request was a real thing too, and look how that turned out, right? So I think where things stand right now, they're going to continue to hope that Bradley Beal stays happy and will be signed that Supermax, and then they'll reevaluate next summer.
So what he's basically saying, and we've all wondered why Bradley Beal has shown this enormous amount of loyalty to the Wizards despite tumultuous times and an uncertain path to contending going forward there. Him getting older, him probably want to get settled into a winning situation down the line here. That 10-year mark in terms of your earnings here in your career are important. I know we're all going to go, ooh, he's earned so much money. Why does it matter? Because once you lock into a Supermax deal, which is what he's looking at as an all-NBA player who's reaching his 10th year in the league and has done it all with one team, the Wizards, you're able to make an astronomical amount of money, over $200 million. Beal is looking at being able to sign this offseason, the one coming up after this one, if he opts out of that deal. He does have a final year in the contract. You expect him to opt out of that, look at the options, and ultimately sign a massive deal. And so we just talked about marketing, that gap between him being signed and him being traded after that. There would be a gap if Beal was going to sign in Washington between when he signs and commits long-term there and when he can actually be traded. Beyond the fact that I don't think Beal is necessarily going to sign the contract, $200 million with the Wizards, and then turn around a couple months later and be like, just did it for the money. I'm on the move now. So Harden did it. Maybe Beal will do the same thing. Maybe Beal will take the Harden approach. Sign the Supermax with Houston. He's making $41 million or whatever it is now. And then he just takes that contract, uses the NBA's rule, trying to incentivize staying with one team, and spin it off into saying, all right, time to trade me, and I'm taking this whole contract with me. So I don't know if that's going to happen. It's just a possibility here. And if it does happen, the Celtics are in a much better position to match Bradley Beal at 35% of the cap. Next year would be $41.7 million or so. So you need to get within a few million of that. Let's do the math here. Marcus Smart makes about 17. Let's say Josh Richardson makes about 13 as an expiring contract. And Rob's at 12, give or take. You're up to $42 million there, Bradley Beal. So no coincidence that the money that the Celtics extended out to next summer in terms of being able to use in trades here is right the exact amount as a max Bradley Beal contract going into next season. Beyond the fact that it's going to allow the Celtics to remain competitive here, keep players that they like in place and satisfied and feeling like they earn their due. And in Marcus Smart's case, I believe there's a trade kicker there as well. We didn't exactly figure that out. Shams originally reported that was in place. I haven't seen what that kicker would be. Of course, that would come in the trade considerations here too. Maybe the Wizards are able to kick back a contract they don't like in this kind of trade scenario down the line with them in Boston. We know, of course, that would be Davis Bertans. He was on this massive deal that pays him, I think, $17 million a year going forward. So maybe that's the little swap you make with this TP in the Evan Fournier sense here. But just to look at why the Celtics are doing what they're doing here, it doesn't mean that they're trading for Bradley Beal. It doesn't mean that this is all a ploy that they're lining up here. They just want to be in a position to do it if the opportunity comes. And in any other sense, they're keeping this core here and available if that's what they want to do. Keep this core together, bring it forward into the future, or if other medium-sized deals, these TPs come into play. Anyone want to dump a $9 million contract? You have that Tristan Thompson TP now. Any portion of a $17 million deal, or a guy that could help the Celtics at next deadline, that's available now to them through this Evan Fournier TP. So you keep kicking it down the line here. You take more expiring money possibly. I like a guy like Thad Young in San Antonio if San Antonio doesn't get it together this year. They did that little sign and trade with Chicago there. So that's something I like. And that's sort of where the Celtics stand going into this season. Richardson extension, more bookkeeping to me than saying we love this guy. And really, all these deals are as much bookkeeping as it is we love these guys, we love the Celtics core, and we're committing to it long term. So there you have it. It's late August. We're going to do a little interview here in a sec. I got Las Vegas leftovers still spilling out here. Sam Hauser profile on Boston Sports Journal is out. I'll send that out in our newsletter as a bit of a preview for anybody who wants to check out my writing over at Boston Sports Journal. It is, of course, behind a paywall, as all their stuff is over there. And you should subscribe, but if you want to try it, I'll send it out in this Bobcast newsletter that I know many of you have signed up for. And if you're not, I believe it's thebobcast.substack.com. We have a Patreon going into next season as well. If you want to support the Celtics coverage over here, this podcast, and more. We will have more guests lined up for some live shows in the next couple of weeks. This one you're watching now is pre-recorded today. So stay tuned for who's going to be coming up here on the show. Today it is Elijah Hughes, who I covered at Syracuse, who played out at NBA Summer League and had a great run out there. I think his final stat line with Utah, and he was kind of the man with Utah, who they were developing, who they were projecting to be part of what they're doing out there in Utah. And man, as we get into this, just to be vulnerable for a second here, the worst feeling, and this happened twice to me out at Summer League, leaving a question on the table, a really good question, is one of the worst feelings you can have in journalism, and that sticks with you, and that is going to have me back toward writing my stuff out, having that on hand, making sure that I have this stuff that I want to ask ready to go and available when I'm asking a guy questions. Because this wasn't, I'm not going to act like this is the most genius question in the world, but I wanted to see what it was like for Hughes to go up against Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, the best defense in the NBA, frankly, across every position, getting inside, battling outside on the perimeter to score. He has to do that every day at practice during the year. So I want to know what that was like. I forgot it. So that's one of the questions that should have been in here that wasn't, and that's the kind of thing that sticks with you and hopefully will make me better here. And then it happened again with Tremont Waters. I feel like this was a can't miss question here for him. He's been in contact with Kemba Walker since he left the Celtics. I want to know, how's Tremont feel? How does Kemba feel after that trade, being effectively dumped by the Celtics this offseason? That's more of a follow-up question, because I didn't know he's been talking to Kemba going into it. That's something he says in there. Boom, let's get that one. So there's sort of two sides when you're interviewing. You want to have stuff lined up and prepared, but you also want to be on your toes in case you hear something that makes you think, all right, let's shift this in this direction and forget about my stupid Josh Christopher mentoring question that really didn't matter all that much for what I was writing. So just a few things on my mind out of Las Vegas. Elijah's, I think, 10-minute interview here or so is going to cap.
All right, so first off, what's the experience been like out here for you? Because you're not a rookie, but it's kind of like you're a rookie in that, like, it's your first Vegas experience.
It's been cool. It's just, at the end of the day, it's just basketball. So I'm just happy I'm playing again, happy that, I'm getting minutes and I'm enjoying it. We're winning games. So it's just been fun, a lot of fun.
Have you been to Vegas before? What's the city experience been like for you so far?
Yeah, I was here before when I was younger. And it's been, like I said, it's been fun. We've been here for about a week now. It's been a lot of fun. It's very, very hot, but we're just enjoying it, making the most of it.
So I know you've talked a little bit about you and Trent kind of being together through this whole ride so far, and now this is like your first opportunity to kind of run a team together at this level. How have you two gone about that? I know you both kind of have your own individual goals, but just in terms of leading the team night in and night out here, how have you guys worked on that together?
We had all of us, all the guys on the team who didn't really play. we've kind of all been going through it together, and it's been difficult at times, but we're just, like I said, trying to make the most of it, learn as much as we can, and then try to put it all into play now in summer league. Now we got the chance to play.
So looking back on your rookie year, first of all, how do you like Utah? How do you like living there? What was that experience like for you? Living out west for the first time, and what was like your biggest takeaway from your rookie year in terms of the experience you had?
Utah is different. It's really different. It's always a different place, but I like it. It's very calm, peaceful, quiet. And then my rookie year was just kind of just sitting back and being a sponge. Understanding that there's still a lot for me to learn. Understanding that there's still so much I can learn, and just sitting back and being a sponge is huge for me.
What were some of the things you learned? I know you've kind of taken, the big thing you've talked about out here is being a ball mover, kind of adjusting into that role. But like, what are some of the other things you've learned?
Coach Quinn is a very specific person. He likes things done in a specific way, and I just learned his offensive schemes and defensive schemes. And being around 3 All-Stars, 6 Man of the Year, Defense Player of the Year, I got so much knowledge just taken from all that.
So I know you've always been very connected to your community back there in Beacon, and you're doing a camp at the end of the month and all that stuff. You got to go back there a couple of times during the year, and obviously the off season here. You were a pretty popular guy there at Syracuse. Now, like, have you noticed a difference even in the way people interact with you, and like what it's like to go back there since you're in the NBA now?
Not really. Like, it's home at the end of the day. I can walk outside with my slides on, pajamas on. It's home. I'm comfortable. So, I guess not. It's just everyone, it's all love. It's just the same. So.
All right. And what are you hoping to get out of this camp you're doing at the end of the month here? Do you already got a bunch of people signing up and getting excited about it?
Yeah, there's a bunch of people that signed up. I'm really excited for it. I'm kind of nervous. I don't really know. It's my first time doing something like this, so I'm just really nervous. I want it to be kind of perfect, but I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to a lot. There's a lot of kids that signed up already. It's going to be a really, really good event.
And in terms of your first year in the league, who are some of the friends you've made, mentors you've made? I know you've gotten to play with Donovan Mitchell now and Rudy and some of those guys. Like, what are some of your best friendships, I guess, on your team or around the league that you've had so far?
All my teammates pretty much. Jordan Clarkson's been a guy that he's been in my ear a lot, kind of connected, just both being high-level scorers. Just both, he was kind of in a different position his rookie year. So just taking it when he learned his rookie year and just putting it all together. Joe Ingles, another guy, kind of similar play style. Everybody, we're all cool. We all hang out. And then also the guys that, we all didn't play a lot together, Jerome Brantley, Jerome Morgan, Trent Forrest, Doak, myself. We're all just close. We all just, chat all the time. Have a good
relationship. What was it like playing in a sudden death overtime game? That was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, that was wild. It kind of reminded me of the Elam ending of the TBT.
Yeah.
It was fun though. It was really competitive. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
What's like what's like the game plan going into one of the like what is like coach telling you right before you start
the first thing coach kept saying is make sure you win the tip. Just win the tip.
Uh-huh.
If we can get the first possession, we can get fouls first, we can have a chance to win the game first. So just coach kept saying is win the tip.
Yeah, and then when so Trent was at the free throw line, right? And he missed the first one.
Yeah.
And then I think someone on the Mavs kind of got in his face, and him and Doe kind of got into it a little bit there, and then he drained the second one. Like, what was going on there?
It was just, high stakes. We're really competitive. Everyone has really competitive people, so we just got a little chippy, but that's just how it is. That's the game of basketball.
In terms of Syracuse, who's kind of reached out? I don't know, former teammates and coaches there throughout your rookie year. What's like the communication been like with your old Syracuse people since you got to the league here? Are they kind of texting you every game night and watching your things like to every game?
I know they're keeping up as much as they can. I know they're busy people as well with recruiting and playing and working out and all that kind of stuff. I know that they definitely keep up when they can. And the same with me. I keep up when I can as much as I can. I talk to Red quite often, GMAC quite often, Griff, all those guys, Buddy, Joe, even Marek. Me and Marek were staying in good contact. So it's all love. Like I said, I bleed orange forever.
What's Marek up to next year? Do you know?
I don't know. I'm not really sure what you got going on.
All right. And what do you think of the year they had? It was kind of a weird year, and then they got deep
Right.
into March out there. All the games had no fans.
Right. Yeah.
And a lot of guys kind of moved on. So Buddy and guys like that were taking over the team.
Mm-hmm. I think they made a really good run. They made it to what, Sweet 16 or
Yep.
Elite 8.
Sweet 16.
I
Yeah.
don't know, whatever. That's Sweet 16, and they lost to a Final Four team. So they made a really, really good run, surprised a lot of people, and that's what Syracuse is known to do, especially in March.
And what was it like being around a playoff run in the NBA? With the run that Utah had there.
Right. It was fun. It was intense. Playoff basketball it's a different level of basketball I've never seen before. It's high level. You got to kind of be there's just such a small room for error in the playoffs. You got to be locked in at all times. Every single possession matters, offense and defense, and the intensity is just, like I said, a level I've never seen before.
And who? Last question I got is who's kind of stuck out in summer league to you so far? I know you probably don't get to watch a ton of the games other than yours, but are the other opponents on your team so far? Like, what are some of the performances that have stuck out to you so far? And what do you feel you've gotten out of it so far?
Well, I think from what I've seen, and just being around him all year, I think Trent Forrest, like I've been saying all summer league, has been like a flower. From the day we came in together to where he is now, he's just grown so much. He's gotten better. Each practice, each 3-on-3, 4-on-4, and now he's coming out together in summer league. So I'm really happy for him. He's really getting better. He's a really, really good point guard. He's a really good point guard. So just seeing him grow, and there's so much room for him to get better as well.
And what's kind of your goal for year 2 in the NBA?
Again, it's all about just getting better each and every day. And if that means I'm getting on the court, I'm getting on the court. If that means I'm still have to sit back and learn and just take it all in, then that's what it means. So just get better. If it's whatever it is, just to get better and learn and put it all into play.
All right, Eli. Thanks so much. Good luck the
Thank
rest
you.
of the way out here. And
Appreciate it.
Talk to you soon, man.
Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Part 2. We're just a few days from September. I know this was always a nerve-wracking time of year for me. I think I talked in last week's episode about Blonde coming out about 4 years ago and how important that was for me transitioning to school, doing what I needed to do those first couple of weeks, and dealing with some topics of homesickness and uncertainty and just anxiousness around starting something new, whether it's a school year, new school, new job, something I'm going to be looking to do. I mean, this year I'm kind of settled in what I'm doing right now in terms of some CLNS stuff, some freelance writing, so there's not as big of a transition for me, but I do know if I ever end up moving or starting a new full-time job, that's going to be another feeling that comes up, and that's one of the toughest feelings ever. I was reading Giannis by Miran Fader, almost done with it, had her on a couple weeks ago here on Dome Theory, and one of the interesting chapters, there's a lot of good stuff in there. I love when he eats chicken in Greece and during a time where he's not eating very often, and then comes to America and tries like a chicken sandwich at McDonald's or Wendy's or who knows where it was, and both times he's like, this is the best meal ever. And I can just imagine Giannis saying it in his accent there. There's a lot of great vivid description in this book, but one of the things it talks about, and this might be something that people brush over, is when he comes to the U.S., is playing for the Bucks the first time, his family's still trying to come over from Greece, and there's about almost a full NBA season where he is in the U.S. in Milwaukee completely alone. And there's a feeling and emptiness that Miran tries to describe in there that I remember very well from that time, early in 2016, especially with everything that was going on, where every day it was kind of hard to wake up and get going and do what you need to do. And then if I did what I needed to do that morning, I would just kind of come back and lay down because, I don't know, there was just sort of this fog over me. There was such a feeling of longing for family being around you, friends, familiarity. And when it's so far in the distance, when it's so far in the past, even just a couple weeks at that point was how I was feeling, it can feel like you're never going to get it back. And I just wanted to take a look back on that time. And I know there's probably some people listening who are starting another school year or just going through some change. This is kind of like a season of change. And this time of year, I always do look back on those transition points in my life around September. You know, going to a new school, going to college. I know 3 years ago I was moving to Spain. There actually, oddly enough, was such a excitement for that and a rapid movement around that time, going from place to place. Once we did touch down, we just hopped right on a bus, moved to one city, moved to the next city. There wasn't really a lot of time to be alone and wallow in those feelings, or just be still and nervous and anxious because you were just moving from one thing to the next. Now, there was nervousness, there was anxiousness around that time. I remember the feeling in my stomach during those bus rides between different cities in Spain when I first got out there, and then especially when we got back to Madrid after we took about a week off, or a week traveling around the south of the country there. That lead up to figuring out who my roommate was going to be for that year, and where I was going to be living in the city, who was going to be my host mom. That was all stuff that brought about some very anxious feelings, but it happened in a much faster way. And it was also organized that actually didn't leave time for some of the feelings that I talked about there. Whereas when you're moving into school and kind of had some opportunities to be on your own and have a ton of free time, that was kind of hard to allocate and utilize in a way that circumvented those feelings. And it really is hard to like put a name to it or describe it, but I think you kind of know what I mean. If you are someone who's gone through changes, traveling, moving, starting new jobs, things like that. So it is that kind of time of year. It is a slower time of year, a time for reflection, time for looking back on some stuff. So I definitely want to do that this week among all the different things that we're talking about here today. Other things going on. There's sort of hip-hop's Great Cold War escalating between Kanye West and Drake. I know one of my favorite accounts here on Twitter, Hip Hop by the Numbers, did a comparison of the two's sales over the years, whether it be like sales per album, total sales through their career, hit numbers, all this different kind of stuff. And it actually is very surprising. Kanye is monstrous of the careers he has had. One of the most accomplished hip-hop careers in rap history. He trails Drake pretty significant, really, by like hundreds of thousands in all these major categories here. I want to read them off exactly, as these two kind of battle behind the scenes quietly. This has been going on for a long time between these two, and it's about to meet what could be a pretty major climax here on September 3rd, when Drake has tentatively slated his Certified Lover Boy project that's been in the works since early this year and was supposed to come out early this year but never did, and there hasn't been much talk or singles floating around, noise at all from his front. Sort of a complacency with Drake still that doesn't excite me all that much. And then on the other end of the spectrum, Kanye has been on this barnstorming tour between Atlanta and Chicago yesterday as I record this, doing these concerts. It actually is pretty smart, pretty innovative, and, you know, grasp this impatience of people in our generation of playing music through Apple Music, selling tickets to these events where he plays this album that's not done yet, not released. Seemed like after the first concert in Atlanta was going to be released following the concert, but wasn't. He's got it on iTunes with a release date and keeps pushing this release date back. To me, it's a scam because, well, for a number of reasons. I think it's scamish behavior where he's placing a product out there and just teasing people to the maximum, knowing that he has this leverage of excitement and hype that other artists can't really take advantage of. He did this with the Life of Pablo rollout too, I thought, where he was able to go back and change an album. Didn't have like the physical hard releases that some people had at that time, so he was going to be able to go back and tinker and change things with the album. Pushed it back a couple of times, delayed the release date, and really whose label at that time was going to give them that kind of flexibility to release whenever they wanted. It didn't seem like anything that was going to be able to transfer to other artists, so great. It benefited Kanye. It was an awesome rollout. It was exciting. To sort of do that again now, almost 10 years later, and in such a more dramatic way where he's buying tickets, or selling tickets to people rather, very exclusive event. The first one didn't feature all that much, just kind of him walking around the stadium. The second one had droves of people walking around, him in the center, and him doing all these different crazy things. And then this latest one, sort of the antagonism of Kanye, bringing out Marilyn Manson, bringing out the baby on one of the first songs after he had pulled him from the song, putting him back on there and sort of flaunting that after the baby is notably within the last couple of weeks at different festival appearances and such, made homophobic remarks, defiantly defended those, just sort of going on these raving rants. And this is a guy that has been prone to, beat people up in public and stuff like that, which isn't as big of a deal as some of the stuff he's done recently. But Kanye has been on this run of antagonizing against this cancel culture thing, and I know I tweeted that out yesterday. I've never really been a big proponent that this cancel culture thing, maybe internet rallying of blowback against what people say or do, finding things on the internet and such, those may be more new phenomenons than what I see is sort of just age-old criticism, or maybe just market decisions against people's values. Those things have existed for a long time in my mind, and I don't know, I think certain people have just sort of encapsulated this in the scary phrase, or this boogeyman that could come and get you too. If you've done things in the past or made mistakes, again, I think there's a scale of punishment and a scale of retribution here, whether it be a Harvey Weinstein or a Bill Cosby, paying for sins of their past, crimes of their past, frankly, and maybe getting some blowback for something you said at a concert that people probably will forget in a year or two from now, after you face some criticism and need to make some amends afterward. I don't think there's anything wrong with culpability or consequences for your actions. I think that's an age-old phenomenon, but it's sort of been rebranded as something that's scary and new and undertaken by, I don't know, young people, minorities, I don't know. But anyway, this is Kanye rallying against it at this latest show, this latest performance, by bringing out Marilyn Manson, who obviously has been accused of sexual assault in a latest incident, spitting on someone, I think, is what ended up happening there. The baby obviously said some terrible things at a concert. So that was Kanye's statement, and Kanye obviously has been criticized for his support of Donald Trump and different things he has said over recent years. I remember his line on the Ye album, railing against Me Too, someone else getting Me Too, Russell Simmons. There's that. Kanye is on his barnstorming tour. Drake is now lining up his album for September 3rd, and we get the news that Kanye, who I thought could have pushed this tour, this anticipation of the album, this event that comes out every week on Thursday night where he goes into a stadium, people get on Apple Music, people stream it, and people buy tickets to these shows, sort of a mega tour, because the music isn't out there, so the only way you can access this music in anticipation of it, see what's changed week by week, is by tuning in, buying those tickets, accessing these shows. Like, there's a greater sense of urgency to this tour than there is a tour after you release music that people can listen to, especially now in the streaming age, whenever they want. Now again, just like with The Life of Pablo and the different things he did on SNL, delaying an album, teasing songs, changing the album after it released. I don't think this is something that another artist could do. So, Drake is sort of pushing him here, it feels like. September 3rd, Certified Lover Boy comes out. Kanye is now reportedly going to release on the same date. So this sort of brings it back to this age where in 2005, 2006, or 2007, 50 Cent's Curtis came out, Kanye's Graduation came out, and there was sort of this sales battle back when sales on a record release day was a big deal. And that was one of the most notable head-to-head battles between two hit artists, and was sort of a tilting point for 50 Cent's career, going sort of in a downward direction, and Kanye becoming legend status. So here, this is two of the best-selling rap artists of all time, two of the megastars in music, and two guys who have been trading blows, silent blows, subtle blows in recent years, going at each other head-to-head on one day with extremely anticipated albums in Donda and Certified Lover Boy. I don't know if this is actually going to come to a head and Drake's going to force Kanye's hand and Kanye's going to follow through and release it and maybe punt on this, what I thought could be fall-long series of tours around the country here, giving every single city a chance to tease this album. And it has lasted longer than I thought it would, and the hype and anticipation for these shows every single week, even after a critical dud in Chicago yesterday, that could have kept going. So is Drake going to be able to force Kanye's hand here? Is Drake actually going to put himself out there after a couple mixed releases in recent years? Between Views, which I wasn't crazy about, Dark Lane demo tapes, which I thought was his worst project ever, and a series of singles that have been up and down. Lemon Pepper Freestyle was pretty well received. I liked Laugh Now, Cry Later. That was one of my favorite Drake songs ever. Then you had a few duds that I wasn't as crazy about in this array of releases within recent years from him. So is he going to finally put himself out there with Certified Lover Boy, another really highly anticipated Drake record, and go head-to-head with Kanye? Maybe dig into his sales, his attention a little bit, if Kanye is going to actually threaten to release on the same day here. These two have been going at each other in such a standoffish way. There hasn't been really direct bars between them. I know Drake said in 2015 he's got a bigger pool than Ye and different stuff than that. It's funny, Kendrick actually released a feature with a slight jab at Kanye. Changing his music, changing sort of like a double entendre there on Baby Keem's record, and saying that I'm the same old Gemini or something like that. So Kendrick has now reappeared as well after a long hiatus on a single with Baby Keem. It actually was Baby Keem's song on Friday coming out, and that was probably the best song I heard on this Friday release of songs. I didn't really listen to the Kanye stream. I'm sort of done with that. I'll see what the final product is when it finally comes out, and I don't really need to sit around for 3 hours on a Friday and watch Kanye dance around with an unfinished, unmastered record blasting through the arena and being rerouted through my phone on Apple Music. There were a couple of songs I liked. It definitely sounds like Donda could be a good album, and even though I wasn't crazy about Ye or Jesus is King, they were solid records. They just weren't that level of perfectionism, that attention to detail, and that mastery that we've heard from Kanye in the past. So that is exciting. I haven't been excited about Drake's release. I haven't been excited about this barnstorming tour that Kanye is on. But I am excited about this long 6-7 year Cold War between Drake and Kanye coming to a head with a same-day release a week from now. I'm not confident that's actually going to happen, but in terms of real moments to have hype and have cultural significance today in 2021, you better believe Kanye West and Drake going head-to-head with albums released on the same day is going to be a moment that we remember for a long time if it actually happens. But in a moment where both have been hesitant to release this album, on their own days, on their own time, I don't think they're going to be dictated by one another here. And I think another Friday will pass, another show by Kanye, and another promise by Drake for this album will come by without any release. Anyway, here's my chat with Elijah Hughes, Dome Theory. Subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, all those different platforms. Go check out my Sam Hauser story. Go check out my new BSJ column tomorrow on Saturday, as well as Celtics blog, CLNS Media. Stay tuned to the Garden Report. And I don't know, thinking about maybe making some Dome Theory hats. I just pulled this out of the luggage yesterday after my Vegas trip a couple weeks ago. So it's back. I'm utilizing it today for the heat wave. I'm maybe going to go swim a